What's going on, everybody? My name is C4. Welcome back to more C4, and today we are reacting to Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 3.0 that just dropped a couple hours ago in relation to the Philadelphia Eagles. And after we take a look and break down the pick that he has the Eagles making, I'm going to do and complete the rest of a mock draft situation based off of that first round pick, and we will go with a scenario what a draft could look like if the Eagles follow along the lines of what NFL insider, draft insider Daniel Jeremiah thinks could happen. Looking at quickly the players that have gone, I think Jahad Campbell's probably still my dream pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. He could fall a little bit if teams are unsure how to use him. For me and my money, that is Zach Bond 2.0. You know what's better than one Zach Bond? Two Zach Bonds, and this Zach Bond runs a 4.5 versus I think Zach Bond was closer to a 4.7. Big time athleticism there. Malaki Starks is currently a popular pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. He could fall, but I think a lot of teams in the general vibe around the league is that he has a very high floor and he's a safe prospect in this year's class. Even if he didn't put up the big testing numbers that, say, a Nick Amenwari was able to put up. Tyler Warren, I mean, tight end could be in play with Philadelphia. We don't know what the uncertainty is for Dallas Goedert if he's going to move on. So him and or Loveland, if they fall down, maybe feel like it's aggressive. I've seen Mike Green a little bit. I think that with the off the field, I know many non-Eagle fans think that we just take all the bad apples. I think, Mike Green's situation a little bit different. I really like Ezra Aku as an edge rusher. If he falls out of Tampa Bay, he'd be an awesome selection. Look at the players that are still here. I mean, some interest. Michael Williams out of Georgia. That fits kind of what Howie Roseman's been looking for in players. But ultimately for the Philadelphia Eagles, Daniel Jeremiah has their selecting Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. The write-up here is pretty much on point. Stewart has offered more disruption than production at this point in his career. But the Eagles made a similar move with Nolan Smith a couple years ago, and it has paid off in a big way. So I don't think you can really compare Nolan Smith to Shamar Stewart as a pass rusher, but I think you're looking at a guy that comes in as a ball of clay, and you trust Vic Fangio to get the most out of him. It worked with Nolan Smith. It worked last year a little bit, and we like to think it projects well for Alex Hunt. Is Shamar Stewart the next in line with that? Maybe. So let's look at the good and the bad of Shamar Stewart. Firstly, I think he's a bigger guy. 6'7", I think he played at 280. Combine was around 270. So if he's like somewhere in between, like he could probably give Philadelphia, some versatility there. You can line him outside the tackle, you can line him up on the inside, maybe a little bit of like the Milton Williams role as an interior pass rusher, but because he's so long and has such great athletic traits, you can continue to develop him on the outside. You look at the PFF grade, you're gonna say, 79.5 is not too bad. 33 hurries is not too bad, but low quarterback hits, 6 sacks in the last 3 is not good. One thing that has stood out, if you look at a lot of the Texas A&M, they have a lot of talent on that defense. Just haven't really, even going back to like Walter Nolan before he transferred, like a lot of these big name, big talented players just haven't produced in Texas A&M. And I know they got Gelko, who's a great defensive-minded coach, but I don't know, man. It's weird. So I think my projection from watching what I've seen from Shamar Stewart, and I'm no expert, I'm as pretend of a draft person on the internet as there is, kind of gives, in a way, Brandon Graham, right? Because when you think of Brandon Graham at his peak, what was his role for the Philadelphia Eagles? He was always a guy that was better at doing the ugly, dirty work, playing the run, getting huge PFF grades. Like when BT was at his best, he was like a top 5 edge rusher for PFF, and you always look like he has 5 sacks. What's going on here? So not the box score shine. Maybe that's going to be a little Shamar Stewart if his college production leads you to believe. But in the same regard, like Daniel Jeremiah said, Nolan Smith didn't have really big-time college production, and we are all anticipating Nolan Smith to have an outstanding season next year. Be a guy that absolutely can get double digits sacks. From watching him play, what I see with Shamar Stewart reminds me, if I'm thinking of ceiling, Jadeveon Clowney, maybe? Like, he doesn't have nearly the same amount of height that Clowney had, but like Clowney at his peak was a guy that got good sack production, never great. Clowney's never going to be winning Defensive Player of the Year. He's never going to be getting 16, 17, 18 sacks. But he's a guy that you can flirt with double digits, but outstanding against the run. Makes other players around him better. Does the dirty work. I feel like that's kind of in the bubble of where Shamar Stewart could lie in the NFL. He brings a little bit more versatility than Clowney as he's a little bit bigger. So you can get and move him around the defensive line a little bit more. But like from just watching him play, I do get Clowney vibes in a certain degree. But you might look at these stats and think, well, see, how are we getting excited and glazing up a guy that got 2 sacks last year? Well, he's a freak of nature athlete. 6'5", 267. Again, his playing weight was closer to 280 last year, if you trust the official websites in college football, which sometimes they can be dramatic. They had Mason Graham, the D-tackle from Michigan, at 320. I think what he weighed, barely over 300 pounds. But you look at Shamar Stewart, and a 4.59, 20 yards. I mean, everything's elite there. His explosion's elite. I wonder if at the pro day there he will do some agility testing. But he is a very, very special athlete. Somewhat similar, yeah, Nolan Smith. You could also probably throw Travon Walker into the mix. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, in Travon Walker's case, that guy went first overall. So he was a project. I think 10 times out of 10, the Jags would take Aiden Hutchinson in that situation. But Walker's putting it all together. He's got double-digit sacks. He's good against the run. The fact that we might be able to get that kind of player, that kind of situation with the last pick in the first round, and then you get that potential fifth-year option for a project player that needs a lot of upside, that's always added value because it gives you one more year of development on that guy. I don't hate this pick whatsoever. I think if this actually came down to it, it'd be very much like when we draft an offensive lineman and a tackle that might be a little bit of project. You trust Stoutland. I think right now on the defense, we have enough faith in Vic Fangio that, okay, maybe you got the Bryce Huff one wrong, but the way that he's been able to develop and get the best football out of, you know, everyone in our secondary pretty much. Jalix Hunt came on. Nolan Smith played his best football under Vic Fangio. I think we got to trust Vic if we went with the selection of Shamar Stewart. So, if we went Shamar Stewart in the first round, what could the rest of a draft scenario look like? Let's find out. All right, so look at what's next for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think we double dip in pass rush with Uche and Azeez Ojulari coming on. I feel like Shamar Stewart is, you know, we're healthy. We're pretty good. As much as I would love Braden Swinson, he's been very, I think he might be the most underrated pass rusher in this class. I was thinking Tuimaleau. If we don't go pass rusher and come that pick 64, if Tuimaleau or Swinson are there, I'd run that one up to the podium. But looking elsewhere for the Philadelphia Eagles right now, BPA got some interesting decisions here at safety. We got Xavier Watts. We got Mukubu, who I am a big fan. Darren Porter, height, weight, speed. Another guy that has a 9.9 RAS. If we want to put another athlete out there to compete with Adoree Jackson, with Keely Ringo for that outside corner spot. There's a lot of desirable traits here. Schweisinger is regarded as one of like the sleeper come-on linebackers from this class out of nowhere. Had a huge year at UCLA, former walk-on. But I do have linebackers I like a little bit later if we're talking about studs. I think for interior, I almost would group in Shamar Stewart. Like, he's D-line. I wouldn't say he's outright an edge rusher because I don't know. He's a D lineman. I feel like would be because if he's 275, comes in closer to his college weight, he's not going to be playing the same position, not like a Josh Uche or an Azeez Ojulari is going to be playing. So he's a little bit of a tweener. So looking elsewhere for the Philadelphia Eagles, get Tate Ratledge, another big-time athlete out of Georgia. They want to add more competition with Kenyon Green, Tyler Steen, but I kind of feel like right now, like they feel good at guard. I think it's going to be Steen's position to lose. I think they're going to be treating Kenyon Green kind of like a rookie. He's 24 years old. You got 2 years if you pick up the fifth-year option, which they might, given the price of guards around the NFL right now. At tackle, someone like Emory Jones, there could be some upside there, even though Lane Johnson just kind of re-signed an extension. I'm not even going to suggest quarterback factor. I think if this is the board right now at 64, I would select Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor is 20 years old. I think he's already, usually we get those guys that are younger prospects. You get them and you draft them because a little bit of work needs to be done, a little bit of refining. I think Mason Taylor, he's already a chain mover. He can block as good as really any of these tight ends that are in this bubble. Has a lot of upside as a pass catcher. And it is we're going to draft Dallas Goedert. Well, Zach Ertz is still really good pick for Dallas Goedert. We don't even know if Goddard's going to be on the roster. So I really do like Mason Taylor there at 64. I'm not going to really glaze the ratings that this draft is giving me, but it would be a very nice pick for the Philadelphia Eagles at 64 at a position of need, because if you were trying to wait to the third round, like all the nice tight ends are gone. That would have been incredibly frustrating if you were waiting for like a Gunnar Helm, who I think will probably improve his draft stock a little bit after the pro day because he injured himself at the combine. He's a real nice player. I think kind of get our pick of the litter of like the next set of tight ends. And I know Harold Fandon from Bowling Green. We have the connection because we have the Bowling Green head coach on staff. I just don't see it stylistically. Fandon played more like a slot wide receiver than he did an inline tight end that can block. And I think you get a little bit more versatility, a little bit more of what Dallas Goedert would bring if you go somewhere like Mason Taylor. So up next for the Philadelphia Eagles, let's go. Okay, so you have Jared Wilson. This is an interesting one. And I made a pick at center. I actually think my very first Eagles mock draft on this channel for this year, I had them going Jared Wilson. And my whole thing was like Cam Jurgens coming off a back injury. That's like, back injuries, you never know what you get. Doesn't seem like, I feel like if there was something more there, maybe some of the Eagles beat reporters would be bringing it up a little bit. Philly met with him. Freak of nature center. Like very similarly built to Cam Jurgens. And if Cam Jurgens is kind of odd man out right now on the offensive line, are they going to pay Cam Jurgens? I think they will. I would have no problem if they do. But Cam Jurgens does not have a contract extension yet. He's coming off a back injury, which no matter what way you want to kind of break it down, back injuries aren't great. So there's a chance that like they could be considering getting a center in this year's class. Looking elsewhere, Emory Jones still on the board. It's not a bad pick. I really am a fan of Josh Farmer. I also like CJ West from Indiana. Man, the bummer there. I was really hoping Makubu from Texas was still there. He might be my second favorite safety in this class. I think I might like him than Imanwari. Doesn't have the athletic traits of Imanwari. I think I would go Starks, Makubu right now. Winston had good hype coming off an injury if we want to add bodies and safeties, but maybe I'm going to be a little patriotic here in today's rebuild and trust that Sidney Brown is going to be our option there. So I think if we're looking elsewhere right now at 96, I think I would go Josh Farmer. Gets the A+ there. It was between Josh Farmer or Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul and Stutzman would be the two linebackers I'd like to target for the Eagles. Chris Paul, maybe the best tackling linebacker in the class. When you look at what Vic Fangio despises, Vic Fangio cannot stand people that can't tackle. I think there was a direct correlation to how bad CJ GJ was at missing tackles, and then Vic, I don't know what he did, but it was like a different player a little bit down the backstretch of the season. Obviously in the playoffs, CJ GJ and the whole defense just upped their physicality a little bit. And I think when you look at it, Chris Paul didn't test like a freak, didn't test off the absolute charts, but he is a sure tackler. And I think at 134, that is a lot of value for the Philadelphia Eagles. Stylistically, I think linebacker, you don't just want to give that spot to Trot. As much as it would be awesome if Jeremiah Trotter Jr. pans out and he can hit the ground running, has an insane training camp, and he lines up next to Zach Bond week 1, and he earned it. That'd be sick. But as it stands right now, letting Oren Burks walk to the Bengals, no one even knows if Nakobe Dean's going to be ready next season and when he would be ready. He might miss the whole year. Who knows? So I think valuing and adding a linebacker through the draft, that would certainly be my target. If we didn't go Chris Paul, like I said, Stutzman makes some sense. Munden from Georgia kind of fits a lot of traits that Howie Roseman likes. I like Nick Martin from Oklahoma State as well. Undersized, very similar game to Nakobe Dean. But I think Chris Paul here out of Mississippi, just such a stout tackler. I think Vic Fangio would be like, that's the guy that I need. That's the guy that I want. Now moving in, we have, oh, that's a bummer. I've done enough mock drafts where Jalen Travis from Iowa State is an outstanding Stoutland U candidate. I also think Holland Pierce, another just dude that's like 6'8" with like an insane wingspan. However, I think at this spot, we're going to go with the former 5-star Logan Brown, tackle out of Kansas, big-time athlete. We just don't know the athletic profile of Pierce. We don't know the testing. He has the size and frame, but it's just more to being big. So if he goes to the Rutgers Pro Day, we get a nice razz out of him. Let's go for it. But Logan Brown, former 5-star, which is something that Howie Roseman likes. He tested well. I think he's like a low 9 Raz tackle out of Kansas. I'd much gamble on those traits for Stoutland U versus a guy that's a little bit more of a question mark in Pierce, even though I do think Jalen Travis out of Iowa State would be my target in this range if he was still available. We have 3 picks remaining for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jackson Slater on the interior. He might be a center. That could be a nice center depth. He tested out very, very well. I'm incredibly intrigued about what Stoutland thinks about Willie Lampkin. Willie Lampkin is like 5'11", has a decent wingspan. I think all the memes right now, he's 5'11", but he has a better wingspan than Will Campbell, the first-round tackle from LSU. Some people are projecting that he could be a fullback. He's one of those just like weird, like, is there going to be something in Lampkin that like has some Kelsey? I don't know. He'd be one that I'd be watching just in case. That could be fun. But with our 3 remaining picks, I do think a DB would make sense. I would go, let's go Za Frazier from UTSA, 6'3" and ran a 4.3. So let's just get some more height, weight, speed, get some potential special teams ability. I like Malachi Moore from Alabama, guy that's kind of fitting the mold of like the Eagles free agency signings. Malachi Moore's stock was here maybe 2 years ago, and it's slowly kind of fallen off a little bit. Hasn't thrived post Nick Saban era, but he's a guy I think Philly's already showed interest in him pre-draft. I liked what I remember of him. Haven't watched much of him this season, but I think that would be interesting. Get versatile players while can play a little bit of nickel. Honestly, I would say his role, if he does make the 53, would be similar to Avonte Maddox. Just a guy that can give you a bunch of different positions in the secondary covered on game day, as well as contributing on special teams. And then with our final pick here, almost feel like we need to go BPA. I don't know if we're going to add someone for the quarterback factory. Some interesting running backs still there. At wide receiver, Dante Thornton, 6'4", ran a 4.3. That could be it. Lane was a burner. Tesla had like a 9.5 RAS, 6'3", 6'4", exciting height. Could be an interesting get. Wide receivers, I don't know how Philly's going to handle wide receiver. I feel like they like Anais Smith more than the fans do. And if you like him, you like Johnny Wilson, then we got our 5 wide receivers. So you really drafting your 6 wide receiver here. I mean, if you are, it's a guy that you can gamble on their traits and stash them on the practice squad. So that would be, going with an athlete. As far as defense is concerned, Elijah Roberts kind of fits that undersized interior pass rush role. As far as pass rusher, David Walker, he's a guy that came out. I think I literally saw something on social media that like he models his game after Brandon Graham. Big time production, small school player at Central Arkansas. That's an interesting one. I mean, you still have some linebackers here as well. I'll be honest. I'm just gonna have a little bit of fun here. So interesting. Montrell Johnson tested a lot better than expected out of Florida. Donovan Edwards, good athlete. From what I want, like Mononga had some huge games for Rutgers. Jarquez Hunter's been doing it for a minute at Auburn. I'd never go ETN. Ollie Gordon, remember Ollie Gordon stock? I know he had the off the field. We'd have to check it out. I think just for shits and giggles, I'd be like, very similar to Malachi Moore. These last 2 picks, kind of similar to Eagles free agents. Buy the dip. Get guys that talent was there, maybe not coming out the best year. Malachi Moore's in that. I think Ollie Gordon's in that. Ollie Gordon was Heisman hopeful. And then, unfortunately, things did not go well for anything Oklahoma State football. It started out not that best. I don't know what the off-field was. Was it speeding? Something more serious? I don't want to downplay it. It was something more serious. But I think buying the dip on Malachi Moore and Ollie Gordon late in this draft would make some sense for the Philadelphia Eagles. So there you go. As we finish it up here, that is, based off of Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, a Philadelphia Eagles entire mock draft. Shamar Stewart, so we get that D lineman edge rusher. We get Mason Taylor under the assumption that maybe Dallas, even if Dallas Goedert's not getting traded, you have your Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert situation. You have a successor. We get Josh Farmer, who is a D tackle through and through. You have Chris Paul at linebacker. I think he could compete right away in training camp with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. for that starting spot. Logan Brown, former 5-star recruit, big-time athlete, newest member of Stoutland U. Zoff Frazier, height, weight, speed, outside corner with good production at a UTSA. A lot of similarities in a way to Tariq Woolen, who came out of UTSA. We got Malachi Moore and then Ollie Gordon wrapping up, buying the dip on players whose profile was here 2 years ago, and now, unfortunately, they're falling into day 3 of the draft. Let me know what you guys think about this mock draft. Let me know what you guys think about the original Daniel Jeremiah pick. Would you be cool with the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Shamar Stewart at pick 32 in the NFL draft? Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. But that'll do it for me here today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As always, your first time stopping by, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time, with your boy C4 saying peace out. Love ya. Have a good one.